I'd like to call to order the Centerville City Schools Board of Education regular meeting for Monday, July 22nd, 2024. Ms. Sauber, call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl.
Here.
Dr. Graff.
Here.
Megan Sparks.
Here.
Mrs. Sternbach.
Here. Please stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are motions to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl.
Yes.
Dr. Graff.
Yes.
Megan Sparks.
Yes.
Mrs. Sternbach.
Yes. First up is public participation. The Board of Education recognizes the value to school governance of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. The presiding officer of each board meeting at which public participation is permitted shall administer the following rules of the board. A portion of the meeting for participation of the public shall be limited to 30 minutes. Attendees must register in advance. Individuals may not register others to speak, and no participant may speak more than once. Participants must first be recognized and will be requested to preface their comments by an announcement of their name and whether the participant is a resident or non-resident, and if appropriate, their group affiliation. Each statement made by the participant shall be limited to 3 minutes or less, and the board will listen to all who speak, but generally not engage in discussion or dialogue at this time. Matters requiring follow-up will be directed to the superintendent. We do have several speakers this evening, and first up is Rachel Evans. Is that one on?
Testing.
There you go. Yes, you're good.
Hello, I'm Rachel Evans, a 2009 graduate and current resident of Centerville. In October, I learned of a Christian organization called LifeWise Academy that seeks to establish a new chapter within Centerville City Schools. Currently, their website says that they are waiting on approval from the school board in order to move forward. I am here to submit a petition for public record signed by concerned citizens and parents to keep LifeWise Academy out of the Centerville School District, as well as letters from 2 clergy women, Pastor Emily Phillips and Reverend Daria Schnapnet, all stating that they do not support LifeWise Academy in Centerville. As of now, this petition has 167 signatures. While this petition is too long to read in the allotted time, one primary concern is our children's safety and security. LifeWise employees and volunteers enter school grounds to collect the students for this program. However, they have not gone through the FBI BCI background screening required for all personnel and volunteers entering Centerville's facilities. Within the past month, it has been discovered that LifeWise hired a former teacher who was previously fired from her school district due to sexual misconduct allegations against a minor student. Another LifeWise employee was charged with endangering a child after a 2-year-old wandered away from her home daycare. These are not the type of individuals that should have access to our children. In addition to insufficient background checks, LifeWise requires parents to sign a waiver of liability while children are in their program, including the transportation to and from school. According to Centerville's release time for religious instruction policy, all third-party entities must assume liability for the child when they are released from their classes. LifeWise does not meet this criteria. Another concern is the marginalization of students from diverse religious backgrounds and those who are not religious. In other districts with LifeWise, stories have emerged about children being confronted in a hostile manner by children who attend LifeWise. Children attending this program are encouraged and incentivized to invite other students to attend the program, creating an environment ripe for religious proselytization in the secular school setting. It is imperative that our schools foster an inclusive and welcoming environment for all students, regardless of their faith or belief system or lack thereof. In light of these concerns, we urge the school board to deny the implementation of this program and to uphold the secular values that form the foundation of our public education. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Charles Irish.
Hi, my name is Charlie Irish. I'm a resident of Centerville, and I have 6 grandkids in the school system. About the grandkids, that's just me bragging. It really has nothing to do with what I'm going to say tonight, because it really is about everyone in our community. Actually, my comments are more directed to the entire community than they are just the Board of Education, but I'll count on you to send them on for me. But some years back, when we first came to Centerville, I discovered a community that had a certain something that I just couldn't put my finger on. I tried to describe it in a way that this place had figured out how to take care of its youth in this community. And I'm not talking about just the schools, I'm talking about the whole community. In a way, it seemed to be a place, I thought at the time, that walked its talk. That's the way I put it. Now today, we've arrived at one of those gut check points in the community when we ask ourselves one more time what we care about as a community. For those of us who have been paying attention over the past several months, we know that the community faces a choice about its future. Now, I don't limit that future just to the schools. I'm talking about the entire community, everything about Centerville. It's a difficult choice because whatever comes out of it, there will be some sacrifice. Now, the school board can provide us with enough facts and figures to fill a library. In fact, I think they've done that over the past months. So what they can't do, though, is to tell us as a community how we ought to feel, or what we ought to believe, or what we ought to value. That's something that the community's got to do for itself. You know, I've talked with people about this levy in Centerville, and I hear people saying that they support the issue because it's because they don't want to see programs cut. And then I hear people talking about being opposed to it because of the costs associated with it. And those are fair issues to raise in a community, but they're not enough. They don't fully recognize what's at stake for the community. That's why tonight's resolution, if there is a resolution, it has to be accompanied by a shift. The board will have made its decision. That puts the responsibility for this levy squarely on the shoulders of the community, citizens of our community. Boards don't pass or fail levies, citizens do. So now the time has come for people to talk together as a community about what's at stake, not just for our schools, but for our community. You know, we live at a time where things feel out of control. We're sort of puppets whose lives are controlled by people, and I'm done, right?
I'm sorry.
Whose
Yes.
lives are controlled.
Thank you very much.
Our future's in our hands.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Next up is Suzanne Tucker.
Hello, I'm Suzanne Tucker, and I work with Beefy Bop Asian Grill. So I actually don't live in the district, but we do have 2 restaurants here, one over in Cornerstone area, one in Centerville, Miamisburg Road. But we have a school lunch program that we've devised at Beefy Bop. We serve at Lakota school districts, Mason school districts, Sycamore community schools. In the Cincinnati area, we service Beaver Creek High School, Fairmount High School, and Kettering. So those are just some here in the local area. But really, it's a school lunch program. We bring all the food prepared. That we have a menu that's devised to cater to the nutritional values that the government says includes in a meal, so a grain, a protein, the vegetables. We sell it at a lesser cost to the school. The school then, in the past, with other school districts, they kind of upcharge it a little bit. to cover the cost, because all students can get it. So whatever kind of program they're on, whether free or reduced, no one's excluded. They can come through the line and get something special from Levy Bop. And the school, because it is a meal, does get government reimbursement for it. And so they upcharge the students that do pay for it to kind of compensate for the students that can't pay for it. At the end, I'm not sure that any of us make a whole bunch of money off of it, but really it's giving good food that kids are excited about. I'd be more than happy to give you contacts information for the other districts that do it, because they've signed up again this year to do it. There was a success last year. So I really just think, I know that you guys don't bring outside food in, but I really would just love the opportunity to sit down and have a meeting with you guys and bring it in. If you're not familiar with Levy Bop, it's 100% gluten-free, so we don't have any of the major allergens like shellfish or nuts or things like that, so it kind of caters to a majority of students. We offer protein to be chicken, and for students that don't eat meat, we do offer tofu as a protein, so they can get that as well. But they can come through the line and get something fun and exciting, and we're excited to give that. We don't know anybody's story, and so that could be the best thing that they eat all day, and we love to be able to be a part of that. So we're involved in the school with athletics and PTO and fundraising and things like that, and we just really want to get into the high school and be able to serve the kids.
Wonderful. Do you have some information to leave?
I have some business cards. I didn't bring any other information because I was hoping that I'd be able to get a meeting set up to bring food for you guys so you can see it firsthand, but if someone wants to reach out, then I'm more than happy to schedule a meeting for you guys so you can see it and taste it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And next up is Amy Fogel.
Hi, my name is Amy Fogel. I am a resident of the district. My husband and I are both graduates of Centerville, and we moved back to the area nearly after being away 20 years to raise our family. And now all 3 of our young children attend this building this year. I am here tonight not only representing the interests of myself and my family, but to speak on behalf of 115 parents, educators, and community members urging Centerville City Schools to join the Vouchers Hurt Ohio lawsuit. As strong supporters of our district, we are disheartened by the state's lack of funding of our public schools. Ohio has consistently underfunded Centerville City Schools, causing the district to return to the community every several years asking for more money just so operating costs are covered. Simultaneously, the state has begun funneling hundreds of millions of dollars into private, mostly religious schools via the Ed Choice Voucher Program. There is no end in sight unless we act boldly. The Ed Choice Universal Voucher expansion legislation has no cap. This year, it spent $743 million of our tax money. It is projected to spend a whopping $1 billion of taxpayer money to fund the program next year. This morning, we submitted to the board and district superintendent a letter formally requesting the district strongly consider joining the lawsuit. Accompanying the letter was the list of 115 verified district residents that signed the petition to demonstrate their support in joining the lawsuit. While we could have filled you guys with tons of data and numbers, but we all know that you know it. We all know that you understand what is at stake. And no district board member or superintendent thinks, geez, I really hope I get to sign on to a major lawsuit during my tenure. It's certainly not the easy route, but we believe that it is the only path given the position that we have been placed in by the legislature's policies, their blatant unwillingness to properly fund public education, and the fact that they have weakened our power at the ballot box to hold them accountable due to decades of gerrymandering. Centerville, unfortunately, has a fiduciary responsibility to vigorously pursue any avenues that ensures it advocates to the fullest extent to fund its district. We ask tonight that you adopt a resolution to join the lawsuit and add our name to the list of over 250 fellow Ohio school districts. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Adrian Sullivan.
Hi, my name is Adrian Sullivan. I am a Centerville resident and also a proud graduate of Centerville High School, along with my husband. We also, like so many others, have moved back to the community because we love the community, and a large portion of that community is the strength of our school district. I also would like to talk about school funding, but from a slightly different perspective. Over the last month, I've spoken with district employees in both formal and informal settings to gather actual information about how the district operates, what it actually needs, what actually happens, how it's actually funded. While these are very complex issues, I have only started to scratch the surface of that. But I believe that through this, and through my research, I guess you could call it, that there are a lot of things that the community has misunderstandings of that hopefully we can maybe further educate them on. I think that school funding for our district needs to focus on actually increasing dollars to the district. I think this should be through a probably two-pronged approach. One, obviously, local dollars, which would include a new levy. I would advocate for that over an income tax, which I know has been floated before. But I also think that while working on advocating for a new levy, it would go further with voters if they knew how we were also working on potentially increasing dollars from the state. I have heard that there's the exploration of a consortium of similar school districts who are also on the state minimum guarantee for funding. I think that it would be beneficial for Centerville to join forces with these school districts to hopefully lobby the state and gain a larger voice in Columbus to get additional dollars to our district. I think that that would hopefully help encourage our citizens to also lobby the state for more dollars for our district. Because at the end of the day, our citizens are paying taxes, whether they be property taxes or income taxes, they are funding our schools somehow. I also think that it would be helpful for community members to understand the impact of the state mandates that are unfunded. I, for one, was shocked at the number of mandates and the cumulative dollars of those mandates and the amount of our budget that it takes up. I think that that is something that is not understood by the community at large, and however we can communicate to them, I think it would be really beneficial. I also think that it would be beneficial to delineate how some of our programs are funded, because I believe some of that comes from our generous community and our boosters, but the optics can sometimes be bad because it looks like it comes from the school district. And so I think that that would be important information to share with the community. Now, I also know that sharing information with the community is hard in our day and age because everybody is on social media. Everybody is looking at different websites and different groups. We no longer have just kind of one source of information, but I would hope that our district can use whatever avenue is appropriate to disseminate accurate information on school funding.
Thank you. Thank you all. We're going to move on next to board and administrative reports. And first up is Mrs. Starks with the legislative report.
I could not have asked for a better segue. Thank you, the last two speakers. This is wonderful. I'm not doing my traditional report tonight where I focus on the state stuff in Columbus. As you all know, I was approached the beginning of July from Vouchers for Ohio. They wanted a meeting with me, and I called Mr. Wesley and said, hey, I'm going to go on a fact-finding mission. Do you want to join me? He said, absolutely. So we went on a fact-finding mission. We met with Dennis Willard and William Phyllis. They are the executive director of the Ohio Coalition for Equality and I can't say the word tonight. I'm so sorry. Thank you. For school funding. I'm a little nervous. There's a lot of people.
pursuing the lawsuit against the state concerning vouchers. Currently, there are 5 plaintiff districts, and Upper Arlington being one of them. The trial is set for November 2024 in Franklin County. School vouchers are a violation of, and this is what they told us, this is what the lawsuit is based on. School vouchers are a violation of separation between church and state. It's unconstitutional. The Ohio Constitution states that, and we quote, "The Ohio General Assembly shall secure a system of public education for all children." The Constitution states a singular system. Vouchers violate the Ohio Constitution, which states that no religious or other sect shall have executive rights or control of any part of the school funds of this state. Private schools have different rules than public schools and are not held accountable. They do not have to answer to the taxpayers, and they do not have a public elected school board, as we do. Voters have never approved the use of property tax dollars for funding private schools. School vouchers overwhelmingly fund children who were already in private and parochial schools. Vouchers have become a refund rebate program. There is now a tuition tax credit, which allows for individuals to donate $750 as an individual and then up to $1,500 as a couple to private schools, and they could get all that money back on their tax refund. If the state took the voucher money, they could fully fund the Cup Patterson for public education, and that one hit me really hard. Like if we took the voucher money away, public schools could easily be funded.
That's the official term for the Fair Funding Act.
Yes, I'm so sorry. Yes, please ask questions too. I know I'm going through this quickly, but like I said, I'm nervous, and Mr. Wesley was there, so he can speak up. About 90% of Ohio students attend public schools. About 46.5% live in poverty. The $1 billion that the state gives to vouchers could help these students overcome the barriers that they face. Private schools are allowed to deny admission to students with special needs, but the state law prohibits public schools to do this, so they have to accept every student who comes through their door or comes to their door. Vouchers create a separate and unequal system of private and exclusive schools, and if the state pays less for public schools because it is a reimbursement, if the state pays less for public schools because it's reimbursing parents for private school tuition, and then taxpayers must continue passing levies to make up for that loss, and I think that is something that we're feeling in our district right now. Vouchers increase the over-reliance on local property tax because the state is shortchanging funding for local public schools. And we figured it would cost our district to join this $2 a student, which would only be $16,764. Something else that came up that I forgot to put in the report is now the state is now giving these private charter schools and parochial schools money to build buildings. So right now there's 3 projects they said going on, and that kind of blew my mind as well. So does anyone have any questions? Mr. Wesley was there as well. You can help.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
First of all, the only thing I would just add, we've had a lot of conversation about vouchers. It's come up in a lot of our community forums. And one of the things that I have shared with state legislators, I've shared with the community, is the concern that there's no oversight, either financially or from an academic standpoint with the private schools. And I'm a firm believer that if the rules were the same for the private schools and the public schools, our students and our schools would compete with those private schools. And so I just ask to make the game fair and make the rules fair for all parties involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions? It's all you, Allison.
All right. Next up, we do not have a student board report this evening, so we will move on to levy recommendations with Ms. Sullivan and Mr. Whitney.
So good evening, everyone. Tonight, just want to have a conversation and share with the board, really going back to a lot of the conversations we've had now for several weeks through our work sessions, regular meetings, our community forums, and some of our informal Elks Connect meetings that we've had that have taken place over the last couple of weeks. One of the slides here, just to share with you, is why to return to the ballot. And if a lot of you have attended our board meetings over the last few weeks, you've seen a slide very similar to this. It's been 5 years since our community has approved additional funding for our school district. School districts need money to maintain operations, and voter levies are the main source of funding for most school districts in the state of Ohio. Because of the way schools are funded in Ohio, the need for additional revenue just doesn't go away. We receive relatively flat funding from the state. It has a lot to do with House Bill 920. And the day-to-day operations for our district includes things like additional programs, additional educational programs that meet the needs of all students, support students' mental health and wellness needs. We've talked a lot about that over the last year, how students' overall wellness and their health is very important for us, and to be able to address those needs. It's important for us to make sure our staff and our schools are appropriately trained, and that we have the appropriate staff, support, facility, and maintenance projects through a levy like this, or maintain infrastructure and equipment. And those have been all of our conversations about as to why it's important for us, or why there's a return, or a question about why returning to the ballot. We have already cut approximately $3.5 million from our budget, negotiated a new contract with a 0% increase with our Teachers Association. That 0% increase is for the next 2 years, and so that increase will not compound. We are faced with asking our community, one of our speakers tonight talked about how this is a community issue, and additional funding or making more significant cuts. And so we're asking, or I will be asking tonight, for the board to make a decision on how we move forward. The other question that we've looked at and we studied for a while is, when do we go back to the voters? We've had discussions in our board meetings, and the topics has been addressed at our community forums and our Elks Connect gatherings, as I mentioned earlier. Considerations have included what type of levy. We've taken some time to study income tax levy and what that might look like. Obviously, we've looked at property tax and a levy amount. We've shared a concern that if we wait until May, we would most likely have to increase that millage from a November. If we don't go in November and decide to wait to go in May, that we'd have to increase that millage to meet some of our costs and our expenses. And we've talked a lot about our strategic plan goals and how not going back or having the funds to support our district finances get impacted. In addition to that, we've shared concerns about personnel, recruiting personnel. We do a great job in the spring to try to attract the most important part of our operation. That's good teachers in our classrooms. We've seen this year at least 3 teaching positions to younger teachers who have decided to move to different districts because it's been a little bit more competitive. I have concerns because we've made reductions. It's hard to make additional reductions in the summer, as we've already planned for the school year for next year, and making additional reductions depending on when we go back in November, or if the levy passes in November versus waiting until May. And May is I've talked a lot in public with our community about May is probably the most challenging time in the school year for us in the spring, as we're preparing to finish the current school year and looking to try to transition and plan for the following school year, and all at the same time trying to recruit personnel. Makes it very challenging to really be a part of a campaign and really see the consequences potentially of that campaign if it doesn't pass in May. We shared some concerns where I've talked about our staff and being able to support our staff in the decision to go back in November. That's part of the conversation that we've had with CCTA when we talked about contract negotiations, and we appreciate the fact that the teachers union worked with the district to get those 2 zeros on the base increase. And we also talked about voter turnout, how that could be positive and potentially a negative for the district as we move forward. So a levy recommendation tonight on tonight's agenda includes a resolution of necessity for the board to approve. The passing of this first resolution doesn't necessarily mean that we are back on the ballot. The board must pass a second resolution to proceed with placing a levy on the November 5th ballot. With the special meeting we have scheduled at 7 o'clock on Thursday, August the 1st at Centerville High School Central Theater would give us that opportunity to pass that second resolution, and it gives us plenty of time to file that resolution with the Board of Elections by August the 7th. And so that tonight, the resolution that I'm presenting to the board is to go back in November 2024 with a property tax increase for 3.9 mils continuing operating levy to secure our operating costs as we try to move the district forward. Just an additional announcement, we've tried to provide as many public meetings as possible to get input from the community. We've provided several meetings over the last 2 weeks. We have 2 more informal opportunities to talk, or there's opportunities for people to talk with the district administration and staff. We talked about Green Park next week on this week, July the 24th, is an opportunity to come out to be able to ask questions. Hopefully we're providing this in an informal setting where people feel comfortable to talk and speak and share their concerns. And then again on Thursday morning at 8 a.m. at Williams Coffee and Chocolate off of Feedwire. So again, a couple opportunities this week to come out and talk and share your concerns or your side or just this year. And talk with the district about our district finances, and we can provide factual information to all of you. Our goal moving forward is to continue to have community forums and have conversations with the community, whether we're on the ballot in November or not. We want to make this kind of a regular routine so that we give everyone the opportunity to speak up and share their thoughts or concerns. So with that being said, that's my recommendation for tonight, unless there's any questions from the board.
Any questions? Mr. Murphy, is there a rate location for Wednesday night's community engagement opportunity?
There is a shelter there, but I don't know if it's how big it is.
Okay.
We could move to John Hole. It's fairly close if need be.
If the weather becomes an issue, should people look at Facebook or an update?
We can make that announcement,
Okay.
with Sarah.
Okay. All right, are there any other questions regarding the recommendation? Okay. Next up is proving ground and attendance.
Good evening. So this is kind of the second part to what we discussed and what I presented last week at the work session. So that was about where we're at with our chronic absenteeism rate for this past school year. This presentation is focusing more on our attendance initiatives that we're working on. So we have been working all year with proving ground. So we presented, Tammy and I presented this in, I think it was either August or September, that we were part of the Ohio Attendance Improvement Network, which is a partnership with the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce and Harvard University's Proving Ground. So we are in cohort 2 of this. This slide here shows the 2 cohorts. The interesting thing about this is, well, there's 2. We are the only district in our area, even entire southern Ohio. A couple of these school districts were in cohort 1, and for some reason they didn't do the work for the first year, so now they're in cohort 2. So we have a really nice cohort of 8 districts that are working on this work, that are part of the network that's focusing on chronic absenteeism across the state. So our core team has actually changed since we started this work. When we started, it was Adam, Tammy, myself, and Cherie. And when we started to go through the work and through the process and coming up with what our intervention was going to focus on, we shifted and we're going to focus on the high school. So we kind of started to include those people that are at the high school that are going to be doing a lot of the work. So this is our team. I want to really thank Shannon Morgan, because without him, a lot of this would have been very difficult. He has stepped up and gotten all the data that we've asked for. We've asked for it in multiple different forms, and he's had to go back to the table. So without Shannon, a lot of what you're going to see would not have been possible. He continues to help with the work in developing things so it's easier for us when we look at attendance, whether it's chronic absenteeism or if we're looking for trends in attendance. He has been integral to this work. So this should be a little familiar. We presented this in the fall. Working with Proving Ground, while the focus is on chronic absenteeism, it's really a broader work. So the whole work of Proving Ground is continuous improvement. So the hope was that we would go through this year with them guiding us, and we would be able to apply this procedure to anything continuous improvement. And it's really about looking at our system as a district and trying to find those things that are working and get rid of the rest of the stuff that's not working, that's not yielding the results that we want for students. So it was, I think all of us that are part of the team would tell every person that asks us, this was a very rigorous process, and it was very time consuming, and there are things that we will take from this, but there will also be things that just, it's not sustainable for us to do this with every problem that we have or everything that we want to look at, but it was very, very worthwhile. So this is what our year kind of looked like. There were 8 sessions with the Proving Ground team and our districts and our cohort. And so each one of these sessions was a day-long session. And so we dedicated the time to work through this. And as we would work through one session, the next session we would invite different people so that we could keep the work moving. But you can see from this slide, every day had its purpose. And it just built off of each one. And when we look back, the amount of work that we did was quite amazing. And we're so excited to keep doing the work.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about our chronic absenteeism. I just want to make note that the data that we were using is actually from fiscal year 23. So we just ended fiscal year 24. But as Becky described, we were working all year long. So the only data that we had available was from the year prior, not the year that we were currently in. And as you can see, we really, prior to the pandemic, our chronic absenteeism rate was really small at only 5% of our students. But then after we had the pandemic, we saw a growth, and then we saw a large growth even after that. So our total number of students that were chronically absent for fiscal year 2023 were 1,377. And that's across the whole entire district. Then when we looked at it, and again, we look at trend data going all the way back to that 2019, so really, fiscal year 2019. So when you're looking at that data, our students, they missed 29.4 days of an average. So our chronically absent students are missing 29.4 days every school year. So when you think about that, that's like a month of school each year. Then we also broke it down to look at it and see, where is our high point? What is happening? So as you can see, our elementary had 37% chronic absenteeism. Middle school was only 23%, and the high school was at 39%. Now, obviously, the middle school has only 3 grade levels, high school has 4 grade levels, and the elementary is kindergarten through 5th grade, so you're looking at 6th grade levels. When you're looking at the grade bands, again, you can see where the high school jumps up above everyone else, but when we put all grades together, our chronic absenteeism rate was 17%. So, the elementary it's kind of like a stair step a little bit. It just steps up just a little bit each grade band that you go to. When you break it down by actual grades, it was rather interesting to us, and we had lots of conversation around this, that our kindergarten was, you can see a peak right there with kindergarten, and we're really attributing that to the fact that we have half-day kindergarten. So unfortunately, it's easier, or not necessarily easier, but if my child has a doctor's appointment and it's in the morning and kindergarten's only 2.5 hours, by the time I finish that doctor's appointment, AM kindergarten is done. Same thing for PM, you can just flip-flop it. So we believe that is what increases our absenteeism rates in our kindergarten. Then you see it start to trend down, through our grade levels. 4th grade goes down the lowest, and then it starts to go back up a little bit. Again, when you hit the middle school, interestingly enough, 6th and 7th grade are the same. I will note that all percentages round, so they could be like a 15.8, which is rounding to 16, or a 16.1, which is rounding to a 16 also. Again, we see an increase in 8th grade, but then a decrease again when you go into the freshman year of high school. But then a significant increase when you get to your senior year of high school. So I'm going to say senioritis starts a little bit early, and they just tend not to come to school. This is a little bit of everything, or well, not everything we did, because it does not have enough room on the screen, but it just shows at each one of our meetings the type of data that we had to be looking at and some of the things that we had to dig into and have conversations about. As Becky explained, these were all-day meetings, so it's very intense to be working at this, and it takes all of us to be able to dig in and come up with what we need to do or what we think is happening across the district. So after looking at all of this data, we had to come up with our problem statement, which our problem statement is that 20% of Centerville High School students are chronically absent, which is higher than the overall district chronic absenteeism rate of 16%. Then now we had to come up with our goals. So we are going to be implementing interventions for the 2024-25 school year. And by using those interventions, here is what we hope will happen. We hope to by the end of the 25-26 school year, so we're giving ourselves 2 school years, we will reduce chronic absenteeism by 4 percentage points from 20% to 16%. So we kind of set ourselves a little bit of a lofty goal, but we think we can get there. And now Mr. Carroll's going to talk to you about interventions.
Thank you. So that was all the so what, now we have the now what, right? And hopefully we crushed that 4% goal. That would be my goal. We got to the point with our program where this is a clip from the Proving Ground work. We had to come up with a problem statement and talk about what interventions we're going to have. So what I'm going to talk to you about is 2 things. One is called herd huddles, because everything we do is either Elks or herd. And so we have herd huddles, which is a group process, and then we have one-to-one check-ins, which is the second part of our intervention. The herd huddles, obviously we know that if you have positive relationships, then you're going to have academic success, you're going to have personal success, you're going to be more confident, you're going to feel more connected. And so everything that we chose in our interventions, the purpose for choosing those interventions was to try to drive to more positive relationships to get students to school. I think it's worth noting that when you see a big number like chronic absenteeism, you have to understand it also includes excused absences. So if a student goes to see a counselor once a week for 36, that's 36 weeks out of the school year, they're pretty likely to be chronically absent. Or if you have standing doctor's appointments, if somebody were to get injured playing a sport, all those things feed into that chronic absenteeism number. It's not the same as truancy. That's a big, I think, difference to make when we're talking about this. But we know that the more you're in school, the more likely you are to be successful. So we want to drive the ship to get kids into school more. So I probably blew past the herd huddles a little bit fast. The herd huddles, that philosophy is our counselors are going to meet bi-weekly with students that we've identified through our data, through the help of Shannon, that are labeled as chronically absent. And Proving Ground puts you at risk through moderate to high risk to severe risk. And so it's a scientific process. We're using scientific-based interventions as part of that process. And what we did is we took our group of students that were chronic absenteeism and we randomized them, and we created a group of kids that we're going to try to intervene with. And then the goal would be to provide the intervention, step back and reflect on the success of that intervention and make any adjustments that we would need to. So right now, Mr. Cavey and Mr. Delatorre worked hard to outline the first 5 sessions. Each huddle will be about 8 to 10 students that are in that treatment group of the students who are receiving the intervention. And we're excited to see where that's going to take us. It's also helping us kind of reflect on everything we do in the world of attendance management. And so I think the families and our staff will see a lot of changes with regards to our communications in general about attendance as we move forward. The one-to-one check-in part that extends the herd huddle will be just the accounted, trusted adult that's going to check in with every student that's identified on that chronic absenteeist list that's going to get that same intervention. So we hope that having the group setting where they're really working in the domain of social emotional learning and supporting students, social emotional needs, coupled with the one-to-one check-in that's going to do the same thing, that we hopefully will crush that 4% goal that you've seen there. Thank you. Oh, I'm doing communication too, sorry. I will say that part of that is we are sending out a series of communications to roll this out to families. So students who are on that list, we're going to send, first of all, if you're on the chronic absenteeism list, we're going to send a communication that was like, from me, hey, I know in reflecting on the data from last year, I noticed you miss school a lot. We really care about you. Coming to school is important. What can we do to support you? And then we narrow that funnel a little bit for all the kids that are identified for the intervention. It's a letter to the families to explain what we're doing and what herd huddles are, and inviting that family to make sure that we engage in this. And then another communication directly to the kid to say, like, you're being invited to a herd huddle. And we want it to be seen as a positive thing. It's certainly not a punishment. It's going to be positive and super supportive. And we'll execute that during advisory in the morning. The counselors will be meeting every other week with different groups throughout the year. And then we're going to then provide families with ongoing feedback for the students that are engaging in that, so they know what we're doing and why we're doing it. Hopefully they can reinforce that at home.
Mr. Carroll, I know we talked last week a little bit about what's considered class time. Advisory is not considered class time, so we're not taking them out to meet with them about chronic absenteeism and causing a bigger problem. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we do have programming and advisory, so we have to be intentional about when we're doing that too. So, but that's all part of the big master calendar that's on the wall.
But those minutes aren't counting against them as far as their overall.
Right. We're not making them absent.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's a good question.
So that leads into a little bit different work with attendance. So in the fall, I talked a little bit about Stay in the Game partnership. So Stay in the Game is a partnership with the Cleveland Browns Foundation and the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. It used to just be the Cleveland Browns Foundation, but because it has grown, it is now the Columbus Crew, and just recently they added FC Cincinnati. So we are still being supported by the Columbus Crew. We are moving this year from what's called a learning district to a planning district. So I have some slides. I'm not going to read these. I'm not going to go over these. This is about the mission and vision for the Stay in the Game attendance network, and this really is about Tier 1. So where the Proving Ground work and the Ohio Attendance Improvement Network is about a tiered intervention, Stay in the Game is about Tier 1. So how do we touch every family, every student, and how do we get everybody in our community to understand the importance of being at school and keep learning every day? So this is where it touches Tier 1. being a planning district, we now have to complete what's called a campaign playbook, and these are some of the things that we have to put in. We had to put in some of our data, and a big part of this is about messaging about attendance. So we will be pushing out on a regular basis information about attendance. What does it mean to come to school every day on time? What does it mean if your student is in kindergarten or first grade and their attendance is not satisfactory? How that could impact the outcome on the third grade reading guarantee? How attendance can drive whether a student graduates on time with their cohort, even starting in the early elementary grades. So we're going to be pushing out all kinds of different things. We will get incentives. So we could eventually have the Columbus Crew mascot. I don't know what he's called. I don't know if he has a name. I knew up in Cleveland. So we'll get some of those things as well. We'll probably get a couple tickets to crew games to give to students. So we will come up with attendance contests, and we're going to do a lot of really cool creative things, I hope, with the work through Stay in the Game. So here's really what I was talking about. Some of the benefits about being a planning district is they will also send to us our own set of campaign materials. So we have already received last year some t-shirts, things that we can give out to students that have improved attendance, or we could target kids with perfect attendance. All kinds of different things. We'll get autographed player pictures, all kinds of really neat things. And then there are expectations that go along with being a planning district, and some of it is about promoting it. Sarah and I have talked already about some of the different events that we have that we can promote it, but really just making sure that it's constant communication about the importance of attendance. So there'll be a lot more to come with that. So do you have any questions for any of the Proving Ground team on anything that we presented tonight? We will continue to present on the data throughout the school year.
I know that state mandates you to give us a report on attendance. We have some statutory obligations. One of the things that we're talking about funding is how much funding do we get for any of this stuff? Is it all some of the stuff mandated, some of it is just volunteer? And to the community, how much are we spending on this? And I know we had some comments in the spring about why do we have so many counselors? Is it a way to spend our money? Can you kind of relate what you're doing here? Because I think it's a great program, but I know that people in our community worry about spending any money that's not quote unquote mandated.
Mm-hmm. So there is one of the big goals for the state of Ohio as part of their strategic plan is attendance. It's one of the key prongs for the department now. There is no funding that goes along with it. Now, the work with Proving Ground and being part of the Ohio Attendance Improvement Network, that has been completely grant funded. So we have not spent a penny on that work. Stay in the Game also doesn't cost us anything. Now, if we choose to do incentives, which we've talked about doing it as part of our intervention, just to really promote, because we know we're working with students who are chronically absent, is there a carrot that we can dangle also with the intervention? So there might be a minimal cost to the district, but it's more from the incentive piece. If we want to do like a contest across the district, there might be some cost in that for whatever that contest is for and whatever might be those kind of extrinsic motivators for kids, but it's very, very minimal cost. And the cost really is in our time, but we see the importance in this work, and we're starting to constantly talk about it. The principals are now talking about it and how they want their kids in class. So it really is coming to the forefront, because what we know is if our kids aren't here, we can't teach them the things that we need to teach them.
So the staff time is quote unquote cost. It's just more work essentially for all of you, and all the principals are involved and all the teachers involved. They're not getting additional pay for that, but it's just
Correct.
additional work that you guys are doing for that. But there is some unfunded stuff that we get from the state that we still have to do.
Mhm. Yes, as with most things.
Right. No, I
Yeah.
agree. Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to move on to treasurer's recommendations. Consider approving the June 2024 financial statements, including the monthly general fund rolling report, monthly cash reconciliation, monthly fund activity report, then and now purchase orders approved by administration, certified by the treasurer, and supported by board resolution totaling $7,370.08. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes.
Dr. Graff?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes. Consider approving the minutes of the following Board of Education meetings, June 24th, 2024 regular meeting, and July 15th, 2024 work session.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes.
Dr. Graff?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes. Consider authorizing the treasurer to return advance funds from the funds listed below to the general fund, Fund 524, the Carl Perkins Fund, in the amount of $3,100.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Sauber, this is a regular item at the beginning of the fiscal year because we can't start the year with any funds in the red.
No, in June, we couldn't end
We
the
couldn't
year
end the
in
year,
the red,
yeah.
so we advanced from the general fund to Carl Perkins. This is reversing that.
This is
paying it back to the general fund, now that we are in the new fiscal year.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes.
Dr. Graff?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes. Superintendent recommendations. The superintendent recommends accepting resignations as listed on Schedule A. Superintendent recommends the employment, change of employment status, or change of contract status for the certificated personnel listed on Schedule B for the salaries, programs, and on the effective dates given. Superintendent recommends the employment or change of employment status for the support staff personnel listed on Schedule C for the salaries, programs, and on the effective dates given. And the superintendent recommends the employment of the personnel listed on Schedules D and D1 for supplemental contracts or extra duty assignments. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes.
Dr. Graff?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes. Superintendent recommends the employment of the personnel listed on Schedule D2 for supplemental contracts or extra duty assignments.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl?
Stay.
Dr. Graff?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes. Superintendent recommends the employment of the personnel listed on Schedule D3 for supplemental contracts or extra duty assignments.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes.
Dr. Graff?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Abstain. Item 2, consider a resolution declaring it necessary to levy an additional 3.9 mil tax levy for the purpose of current expenses and requesting the Montgomery County Auditor to make certain certifications pursuant to sections 5705.03 and 5705.21 of the revised code.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any additional discussion? Okay. Seeing none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes.
Dr. Graff?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes. Consider accepting bids through the Southwest Ohio Educational Purchasing Council and approving the lowest and best bid for the purchase of the following: Rush International and Cardinal Bluebird buses, 6 84-passenger FE Bluebird Transit with luggage compartments for a total of $880,326, and one 72-passenger Rush International Conventional with lift for a total of $143,945. Total purchase amount, $1,024,271.
So moved.
Second.
And this is coming out of permanent improvement funds. This was discussed at our work session last week.
And the only thing I would add is that the Southwest Ohio Educational Purchasing Council allows the district to pool their resources with other districts to reduce, so you'll get a better cost for busing. So it's a great program to be a part of the Southwest Purchasing Council to be able to do our bidding process for us.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes.
Dr. Graff?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes. Consider approving bus routes for the 2024-2025 school year with authorization for the supervisors of transportation to adjust routes as necessary.
So moved.
resolution that we pass so they can work on our bus routes and make the changes as needed, correct?
And we'll be making changes usually all the way through mid-September,
Yes.
just to make sure we have the routes worked out, but yes.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes.
Dr. Graff?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes. Consider approving changes and updates to the middle and high school student handbooks as previously discussed.
So moved.
Second.
And this was also discussed at last week's work session. The biggest change that was noted was the addition and the modifications to the cell phone policies per the recent passage of the law of the State House, correct?
That's correct. It gives us a little bit of an opportunity to get ahead of the language that'll come out. There'll be a change in our board policy most likely in the fall, but this is an update in our student handbook to address cell phone use at both the high school and middle school.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes.
Dr. Graff?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes. Consider amending Resolution 2024-078 from April 22nd, 2024 to purchase 318 Samsung laptops from Best Buy for $268,710. The original vendor, CDWG, could not deliver the products ordered from the approval in April. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Morgan, did you want to add anything to that? I know we've discussed this previously, or?
This is just an amendment to the resolution from April that allowed me to purchase laptops to replace the elementary laptops. I've been able to secure those laptops. They've been delivered. We have them ready to deploy next week.
And these are the staff computers, is that
These are
correct?
staff laptops, correct,
And
for elementary teachers.
the same dollar amount as what was approved in April?
A little less than the amount that was from April.
Okay. And is that due to unit price change or total unit?
Number of
Units?
units, yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes.
Dr. Graff?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes. Any final comments regarding pastoral business from the Board of Education?
Happy birthday, Allison.
Oh, thank you. I would just like to thank Mr. Wesney, Ms. Sauber, and their staff for all of the community forums, the
Elks Connect.
Elks Connect meetings that they've been holding, and the couple more that are still on the calendar. I know it takes a lot of time, not only to schedule and set them up, but to actually hold the meetings, and I think it is appreciated by the community. I'm excited about the ongoing nature of it, and I just want to thank you guys for the hard work that goes into that.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? Pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1, I hereby move that the board adjourn to executive session to consider the employment of a public employee or official. No other business will be conducted except to come out of executive session to adjourn. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Dahl?
Yes.
Dr. Graff?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes.
Mrs. Sternbach?
Yes. Thank you all for coming. We are in executive session.